Alright, so I think it's a good time to change our swim arm bearing because we're already hitting 25,000 miles on this bike, and I think it's actually a really good time to change this bearing before it gets shocked and lock our wheel up. This is a radial bearing for the swim arm. All Vespas comes with one, pretty much a bearing that goes in the swim arm where it holds the exhaust, and that bearing, since it's a sealed bearing and it's exposed here right next to the wheel and the exhaust, it tends to go bad pretty often because it gets a lot of dirt, and it's always good to replace it before it gets locked up and, you know, get yourself stuck on the road. So we're gonna proceed and change that. That's gonna be a pretty simple process. It seems complicated because it might require some special tool to remove the bearings itself from the cavity, but of course there are many ways to do it at home with basic tools. We're gonna proceed and do it with basic tool, with sockets and stuff and hammers. We're not gonna be, you know, using any of the special tools on these videos. This is a pretty simple process. We just have to heat up the aluminum. It expands a little bit and it makes the work a lot more easier. There are many ways on how you can heat up the aluminum. You can even put it inside the oven on your keychain, or if you have a torch, or if you have a heat gun, or there are many ways to heat up a metal. You just find your best one at home. I got a torch here in my case, which is pretty cheap. You can get a torch for less than 20 bucks. My bike right now is pretty dirty. I mean, this is a thing that you can like diagnostic just by hearing. There are like special tools that you can use to determine if a bearing is going bad or not, but as you can hear, this one is going pretty bad. When you spin the wheel, you hear that metal noise, you know, rubbing one to each other. That's pretty much the bearing already dry and dirty in the inside. And if your bearings are making this noise, please take care of that because they're pretty much going bad, and if you leave them like that for a long period of time, you're gonna pretty much lock up your wheel, experience a lot more problems than just going through these easy replacements. So I highly suggest you to replace the bearings when you think it's a good time. Every time that I remove the wheel, I check the bearing as well. When I service my CVT cover, I check the one on the CVT cover, and they always seems to be really nice and smooth. But once you start to feel a little bit of play, or you can start to hear or feel some vibration inside the bearing, I highly suggest to replace it right away. So let's get into it. Sometimes I apply a little bit of grease. I remove the seal every time that I service my wheel. Every time I change my tire, I have removed the seal in the inside, and I have applied a little bit of new grease and, you know, clean it up, and it becomes a little better than before. Just to like ride some extra miles while I was waiting for the new one. That one is already going bad, as you can see. Got the new one right here, original from Piaggio. So let's get into it. Sometimes this bracket can get like really stuck. If you have one of those GTS, the old ones like I have, this is from 2008, and if you have never removed the swim arm or it's been there for a long time, this is probably gonna get stuck into the axle, and you will have to use an extractor tool, or you will have to hammer the axle for a little while so you can just break that corrosion in the inside and you can pull it out. That happened to me the first time when I removed the wheel from this Vespa, because the last owners, the only owners of this bike, they bought it back in 2008 and they only used it like for 4,000 miles, and they never did a service to it or anything. And I bought it back in 2018, 19 or something like that. So it was sitting in a garage for a long period of time, and this got like really sealed in there, you know, like it got really stuck in there. So when I proceeded and bought the scooter and I was gonna change the tire for the first time, it was literally impossible to get this bracket out of the way. I found a way that by hammering the axle a lot, in my case, because it was really stuck, I was able to remove the bracket itself from the axle. You can click up there and watch that video. It was one of my first videos, so please I apologize for all the bad editing and the bad talking and everything. But that was one of my first videos, and that was one of the first problems that I faced when I started working with my GTV. And since then I started applying a little bit of anti-seize there, and it's not a problem anymore to remove. But as you can see, that bearing, man, is really bad. You can see how I have played, and you can hear it pretty badly. So I'm gonna proceed and remove this bearing out of the cavity when I install the new one. But to be able to do that, I'm gonna heat up this a little bit. I'm gonna get a socket of this size exactly, and then a bigger one to install the new one. Let's proceed and clean this grease a little bit so we can start heating that up, get it ready to hammer it out. Okay, so once we have removed the bracket, I'll recommend getting some pieces of wood so we can work more comfortably with the bracket, because some brackets have like a really weird shape and it's really hard to get a flat surface to work on it. Every time that I replace my rear wheel, and I have the advantage of having this out of the way, I was able to remove the seal here from the inside. Just get something pretty thin, like a flat screwdriver or something. I don't give a since I'm replacing it, but every time I was able to get that out, I take out the seal like that and I spray some brake cleaner all around the bearings in the inside, and I try to fit that up with new grease, and it's been like that since I bought the scooter, and I haven't had any issue. I even went a little farther than you should have to, trusting those bearings. Right now we got the new one. Let's heat that up and remove the old one, and we're gonna be doing that from here, from the back. Okay, so we're gonna proceed and heat that up with the torch. Get it ready to hammer it out. I'm gonna be using, find a big socket, and this is the biggest one I have here. As you can see, we remove the bearing as easy as that. This is actually really warm. That's the good thing of heating this up. I'm gonna proceed and give a nice clean here in the inside because we have a little corrosion there, as you can see. Look at that mud in there, man. As you can see, the new one is completely smooth. You don't hear anything or feel anything. It's completely nice and new. I already proceed and clean this up. As you can see, the cavity inside is really nice and clean. I'm more than ready to start heating this up again so we can get it nice and warm and ready to hammer that in with the big socket. You can see I'm gonna be hammering with the 46 with the rear end because that's what I have available here at home. But you can use any other socket, anything that fit perfectly into the bearing, right in the edge. So make sure you find something that sits right in place and not like on the seal, because if not, you're gonna hammer the seal like this and you're probably gonna mess up the whole thing. Proceed and start heating this up and get it ready to install. Well, the warmer it gets, the better. Accelerate everything here. Watch how you invert yourself. You're gonna proceed and apply a little bit of oil around the bearing just to help, slide that in perfectly so you don't burn your hand. Proceed and lighten that up as best as we can. We're more than ready to hammer that down. Alright, so we got swapped in the new bearing inside. As you can see, it's nice and new. Look how smooth that is. You don't even hear anything in compared with the other one. I smashed the seal here a little bit, but nothing to worry about. If you do smash your seal in this part right here, you can take it out and put it like in a flat surface and hammer it down so it gets flat again, because it's like a metal paper thin. So you gotta be like really careful you don't touch the seal, because not you're gonna mess up the whole new bearings. But we successfully installed it in. It was actually very straightforward. This bearing is actually made in France, man. Nice. SKA. Those are really high quality bearings. This thing was like 30 bucks. There are some cheaper versions that you can go with, but I like to go with the OEM parts that I recommend. We're gonna proceed and install everything back in. Highly suggest you put some anti-seeds here in the bearing, the inside, and here in the axle, so it doesn't get stuck anymore. Proceed and clean that up a little bit from the old one. And that's it. Once you apply your anti-seize there, you're more than ready to start installing everything back in. And make sure you torque your wheel and everything with the right torque specification at the manual, and we should be good to go. Alright, so as you can see, that was actually very straightforward. Pretty simple job to do, as long as you have the right tools and the right parts to do the job. And as you can see, it's now a lot more quiet. The noise that you're still hearing is from the actual brake disc and the pads, rubbing against each other. But as you can see, it's way nicer right now. It's way smoother because we got that new bearing in the swim arm. So I hope you guys find this video helpful. Make sure you check down the description below for all the links and all the parts number necessary to do this job. Click that like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more great content and share it with your friends. See you in the next one. Thank you. Peace.